Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in her office aboard Earth Station Alpha, staring at the holographic message that had arrived just minutes ago. The symbol of the Galactic Council glowed blue and gold before her, its intricate design representing hundreds of alien species united under one government. She had seen this symbol many times before, but never in an official communication addressed directly to humanity. Priority transmission for the human representative, the message began. Elena touched the play button with a steady hand, though her heart was beating faster than usual. A tall, crystalline figure appeared in the hologram. Elena recognized him immediately as Valorian Zenthek, the Speaker of the Galactic Council. His body was made of what looked like living glass, with light flowing through him in patterns that showed his emotional state. Right now, those patterns seemed formal and cold. "Greetings, Ambassador Vasquez," Valorian said, his voice carrying the mechanical translation that all species use to communicate. "The Galactic Council formally requests your presence at Nexus Station in 7 standard days. This will be humanity's first opportunity to address the full assembly of member species." Elena raised an eyebrow. In the 2 years since humans had made contact with the galactic community, they had been mostly ignored. Human requests for council membership had been politely declined. Human offers to share technology had been dismissed. Human attempts to establish trade agreements had been met with bureaucratic delays. "The matter to be discussed concerns the future of human expansion in this galaxy," Valorian continued. "The Council has reached important decisions regarding humanity's place among the civilized species. Your attendance is not optional." The message ended abruptly. Elena stood in silence for a moment, then called for her aide. "Marcus, get me a secure line to Earth Command," she said, "and prepare my ship. We're going to Nexus Station." The journey to Nexus Station took 3 days through hyperspace. Elena spent the time reviewing everything humanity knew about the Galactic Council. The information was limited but troubling. The Council had been formed over 10,000 years ago by the oldest spacefaring species. They maintained peace through a system of laws that favored established powers over newcomers. Newer species were expected to accept junior status for centuries before gaining full membership. Many never achieved it at all. Those who refused to follow council rules often found themselves isolated or worse. Elena had read reports of entire civilizations that had simply disappeared after rejecting council authority. Nexus Station appeared on the view screen as Elena's ship dropped out of hyperspace. The massive structure was the size of a moon, with docking bays that could hold ships from the smallest courier vessels to the largest dreadnoughts. Thousands of different spacecraft moved around the station in carefully controlled traffic patterns. Elena's ship was directed to a docking bay far from the main diplomatic areas. The message was clear. Humans were not considered important guests. As she walked through the station's corridors, Elena noticed how other species looked at her. Some showed curiosity, others seemed amused. A few displayed what she could only describe as pity. The council chamber was a vast spherical room with seating arranged in concentric circles. Representatives from 847 different species filled the space, their forms ranging from humanoid to completely alien. At the center of the chamber sat Valorian Zenthek, his crystalline body glowing with authority. Elena was escorted to a small section marked for observers. Not even a proper seat for a representative. She remained standing as Valorian called the session to order. "Honored delegates," Valorian began, his voice echoing through the chamber. "We gathered today to address the question of humanity. This young species has spread to 23 star systems in less than 50 standard years, since achieving faster-than-light travel. Their expansion rate is unprecedented and concerning." Elena felt her jaw tighten. Concerning? Humans had been careful to avoid already claimed systems. They had followed every rule about expansion that had been shared with them. A delegate from the Zephyrian hegemony stood to speak. The reptilian creature's scales shifted color as it talked, another form of emotional expression. Speaker Zenthek speaks truth. Humans show aggressive tendencies that threaten galactic stability. Their military actions against pirates and raiders demonstrate violent instincts unsuitable for civilized space. Elena wanted to laugh. Humans had been defending themselves and their trade routes from attacks. The council species seemed to prefer paying tribute to pirates rather than fighting them. Furthermore, the Zephyrian continued, human technology develops at dangerous speeds. They modify and improve systems faster than any species in recorded history. Such rapid change destabilizes the technological balance that maintains peace. More delegates began speaking, each adding their concerns about humanity. Elena listened with growing alarm as she realized what was happening. This was not a discussion about potential council membership. This was a trial, and humanity had already been found guilty. The council has reached a decision, Valorian announced after the last speaker finished. Humanity will be placed under protective restrictions for the safety of all galactic species, including themselves. The terms appeared on screens throughout the chamber. Elena read them with disbelief. Human expansion would be limited to their current systems. Human military forces would be reduced and placed under council oversight. Human technology development would be monitored and controlled. Human trade would be regulated by council authorities. These restrictions are not punishment, Valorian said, his light patterns showing what Elena thought might be satisfaction. They are protection. Young species often make mistakes that lead to their destruction. The council's wisdom will guide humanity toward proper civilization. Elena looked around the chamber at the faces watching her. Most showed approval of the council's decision. A few seemed uncomfortable, but none spoke in humanity's defense. She realized that this had all been decided long before she arrived. The council had no intention of treating humans as equals. She thought about her instructions from Earth Command. Be diplomatic. Avoid confrontation. Try to build relationships that would benefit humanity in the long term. But as she looked at the restrictions displayed on the screen, Elena knew that diplomacy had failed before it began. These aliens saw humans as children who needed to be controlled. They believed that humanity's short time in space made them inferior and dangerous. They had made their decision based on fear and arrogance, not facts or fairness. Elena stood slowly, drawing attention from the nearest delegates. A few pointed at her with various appendages, clicking or humming in what she assumed was amusement. Speaker Zentek, she said, her voice carrying clearly in the chamber's acoustics. I request permission to respond on behalf of humanity. Valorian's light pattern shifted to what Elena had learned indicated surprise. The restrictions are not open to negotiation, Ambassador. The council has spoken. I understand, Elena replied calmly. I only wish to provide humanity's official response to your decision. Valorian consulted with several other council leaders. After a brief discussion, he nodded. You may speak. However, make it brief. The matter is already settled. Elena smiled, though she knew most of the aliens in the chamber would not understand the expression. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small data device. Thank you, Speaker Zentek. I believe the council will find humanity's response quite enlightening. She activated the device and screens throughout the chamber began displaying new information. Elena watched as expressions changed from boredom to confusion to alarm as the delegates realized what they were seeing. Perhaps, Elena said softly, we should discuss this matter more thoroughly. The information flowing across the chamber's screens brought complete silence to the Galactic Council. Elena watched as hundreds of alien faces turned toward displays showing detailed schematics, star charts, and classified intelligence reports. Data that should have been impossible for humans to obtain filled every screen in the vast spherical room. Valorian Zenthek's crystalline body flashed with rapid color changes. Patterns Elena had learned indicated extreme agitation. The speaker's voice carried a sharp edge when he finally spoke. What is the meaning of this data? Valorian demanded. How did humans acquire classified council intelligence? Elena remained standing in her observer section, hands clasped behind her back in a relaxed pose that contrasted sharply with the growing tension around her. The data represents 2 years of careful observation, Speaker Zentek. My government believed it was important to understand our galactic neighbors before entering into formal relationships. The Zephyrian delegate who had spoken earlier rose from his seat, scales shifting to deep red patterns that Elena knew meant anger or fear. This is espionage. Humans have violated the most basic laws of civilized interaction. Actually, Elena said, consulting a small tablet, humans have violated no laws. We studied only publicly available information, observed ship movements in open space, and analyzed trade data freely shared among council species. The fact that you consider this intelligence gathering instead of basic research says more about your assumptions than our methods. She touched her tablet, and the displays changed to show detailed breakdowns of military capabilities for each major council species. Ship designs, weapon systems, defensive installations, and fleet positions appeared with startling accuracy. For example, Elena continued conversationally. The Zephyrian hegemony maintains approximately 47,000 combat vessels across their territory. However, 68% of those ships use outdated plasma drive systems that limit their effective range. Their primary battle doctrine relies on overwhelming numbers rather than tactical flexibility. The Zephyrian delegates' scales turned almost black. Around the chamber, other species began agitated discussions as their own military secrets appeared on screen. Elena changed the display again. The crystalline dominions prefer energy-based weapons and energy shields, making them vulnerable to kinetic bombardment. The Void Swimmers have impressive stealth technology but limited firepower. The Hive Collective relies too heavily on networked communications that can be disrupted. Enough. Valorian's voice boomed through the chamber. You prove our point about human aggression. No peaceful species would gather such information. Elena tilted her head slightly. Speaker Zenthek, every species in this chamber has detailed intelligence on their neighbors. The difference is that humans are honest about it. We also studied your civilian populations, your art, your literature, your scientific achievements. Would you like to see those files as well? The chamber fell silent again. Elena could see delegates exchanging glances, many looking uncomfortable. She realized that her openness was more disturbing to them than her information gathering. The question, Elena said, walking slowly toward the center of the chamber, is why the Council fears one young species enough to attempt preemptive restrictions. Humans have not attacked any Council member. We have not claimed territory belonging to others. We have not interfered in your internal affairs. She stopped directly in front of Valorian's elevated platform. So what exactly makes humanity so dangerous that you feel the need to cage us? A delegate from the Machine Collective spoke for the first time. Its mechanical voice carried no emotion, but Elena had learned that meant the artificial intelligence was considering information very carefully. Human expansion rate exceeds normal parameters, the machine said. Human technological adaptation shows concerning patterns. Human military responses demonstrate unusual efficiency. Elena nodded. You mean we learn fast, we adapt quickly, and we fight effectively when threatened? These are survival traits, not aggressive ones. Survival traits that threaten established order, another delegate added. Elena smiled, and this time she made sure it was not a friendly expression. Now we reach the truth. The Council is not concerned about human aggression. You are concerned about human competence. She activated her tablet again and new information appeared on the screens. This time it showed historical data about Council species development patterns. Every species in this chamber took an average of 300 years to establish stable interstellar civilization. Elena said, humans achieved the same level of development in less than 50 years. Every Council species expanded slowly, carefully testing each system before moving to the next. Humans colonized 23 systems in 2 decades. The displays showed comparative technological development charts. Human advancement curves were steep lines climbing rapidly upward, while Council species showed gradual, steady progress over centuries. Most importantly, Elena continued, every Council species achieved spaceflight during periods of internal peace and cooperation. Humans developed faster than light travel while still fighting wars on their homeworld. We are the only species in recorded galactic history to weaponize our space technology from the very beginning. She let that information settle before continuing. You look at human development and see aggression. What you should see is adaptation. Humans do not choose conflict, but we excel at it when conflict chooses us. Valorian's light patterns had stabilized into what Elena recognized as deep concern. Your point is made, Ambassador. However, it does not change the Council's decision. Humanity will accept the protective restrictions or face the consequences of rejection. Elena looked around the chamber at the hundreds of species watching her. She could see fear in many faces, curiosity in others, and calculation in a few. These beings had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years through consensus and careful control. They were not prepared for a species that operated by different rules. I see, Elena said quietly. And what consequences might those be? Economic isolation, Valorian replied. Denial of access to Council space lanes. Prohibition of trade with member species. If necessary, military action to enforce compliance. Elena nodded slowly. So if humanity refuses to accept voluntary restrictions, the Council will impose them by force. The Council maintains galactic peace through strength when necessary, Valorian said. Elena was quiet for a long moment, appearing to consider the Council's ultimatum. Around the chamber, delegates waited for humanity's response. Many seemed confident that a single young species would have no choice but to submit to the combined power of the galactic community. Finally, Elena looked up at Valorian and spoke in a clear, calm voice that carried to every corner of the vast chamber. "Speaker Zenthek, I need to ask you one question before I can provide humanity's official response." "Ask," Valorian said. Elena's expression remained perfectly neutral as she spoke. "Are you absolutely certain that threatening humanity with war is the choice you want to make?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Elena could see confusion on many faces. Her tone had been polite, almost conversational, but something in her words made the chamber feel suddenly colder. Valorian's light patterns shifted to displays Elena had never seen before. "The Council does not make threats, Ambassador. We state facts. Humanity will comply or face consequences." Elena nodded one final time. "Thank you for clarifying the Council's position, Speaker Zenthek. That makes humanity's response much simpler." She looked around the chamber, meeting as many alien gazes as possible before speaking again. "Then the war begins now." Elena's words echoed through the Council chamber like a physical blow. For several seconds, complete silence filled the vast space as hundreds of alien minds processed what they had just heard. Then chaos erupted. Delegates began shouting in dozens of languages, their translation devices struggling to keep up with the volume of panicked voices. Some species rose from their seats, others huddled together in defensive groups. A few began frantically activating communication devices to contact their home governments. Through it all, Elena stood calmly in the center of the chamber, watching the reaction with the detached interest of a scientist observing an experiment. "Silence!" Valorian's voice boomed through the chamber's speakers, enhanced by technology that made it impossible to ignore. The crystalline speaker's body blazed with angry light patterns as he glared down at Elena. "You dare threaten the Galactic Council?"
A single primitive species against the combined might of civilized space?
Elena tilted her head slightly. "I made no threats, Speaker Zenthek. I simply stated a fact. You have declared your intention to impose restrictions on humanity by force. We have decided not to accept those restrictions. The logical result is conflict." She activated her tablet again, and the chamber's displays changed to show new information. This time, the data made several delegates gasp in recognition. "Perhaps it would be helpful if I explained exactly what humanity is," Elena said conversationally. "You seem to have some fundamental misunderstandings about our species." The screens showed historical records from Earth, beginning with primitive warfare and advancing through centuries of increasingly sophisticated conflict. Cave paintings of battles gave way to ancient armies, then medieval sieges, gunpowder weapons, industrial warfare, and finally nuclear weapons. "Humans have been fighting wars for over 10,000 years, Elena explained. "We have never known a period of true global peace. Our technology, our society, our entire civilization developed during constant conflict between different human groups." She changed the display to show more recent history. When humans achieved spaceflight, we were in the middle of a global war. Our first space stations were military installations. Our first interplanetary ships were designed to carry weapons. Our first colonies were built to withstand siege conditions. The Zephyrian delegate found his voice first. "This proves our point. Humans are a violent species unsuited for civilized contact." Elena turned to face him. "Violence and aggression are not the same thing. Humans do not seek war, but we are very good at it when war comes to us. The difference is important." She activated new files, and the displays showed human encounters with space pirates and raiders over the past 2 years. In every case, human responses had been swift, decisive, and completely effective. When pirates attacked human shipping, we did not pay tribute or negotiate. We hunted them down and destroyed them. When raiders hit our colonies, we did not relocate or build better defenses. We tracked them to their bases and eliminated the threat permanently. Elena paused to let this information settle. Other species see this as aggression. Humans see it as problem-solving. The machine collective delegate spoke again. "Efficient problem-solving indicates dangerous potential. Human capabilities exceed safe parameters for galactic stability." "Which brings us to the real issue," Elena said. "You are not afraid of human aggression. You are afraid of human competence." She brought up new displays showing comparative development rates between humans and council species. The differences were stark and undeniable. Every species in this chamber developed spaceflight during peaceful periods, Elena continued. You had time to build consensus, establish traditions, create stable societies before venturing into space. Your ships were designed for exploration and trade, then modified for defense when necessary. She gestured toward the screens. Humans designed warships first and converted them for peaceful uses later. Every human vessel can fight. Every human colony is a fortress. Every human citizen understands military concepts because our entire culture developed around the need to survive in hostile conditions. Elena walked closer to Valorian's platform. You think this makes us dangerous? Actually, it makes us different. Humans do not separate military and civilian thinking the way you do. We are not a peaceful species with a military wing. We are a military species that also engages in peaceful activities. The chamber had grown quiet again, but Elena could see the fear in many faces. She was describing something that challenged their basic assumptions about how civilized species should behave. Consider our expansion rate, Elena said. Council species spend decades studying each new system before establishing colonies. They build slowly, test carefully, avoid risks. This is logical behavior for species that achieved spaceflight through cooperation and careful planning. She changed the display to show human colonization patterns. Humans colonized 23 systems in 20 years because we approach expansion like a military campaign. We scout fast, move quickly, establish strong positions, and secure our supply lines. It is not recklessness. It is military efficiency applied to civilian goals. The Void Swimmer delegate, a tall being with gray skin and large black eyes, spoke for the first time. Your explanation does not reduce the threat level. Military thinking applied to expansion is aggression by definition. Elena shook her head. Only if you assume humans want to conquer other species. We do not. Human expansion seeks empty systems, unclaimed resources, new opportunities. We have no interest in ruling over alien populations. Then why gather intelligence on council species? Valorian demanded. Elena smiled. Because the first rule of military thinking is to know your environment. Humans entered a galaxy full of unknown species with unknown capabilities and unknown intentions. Gathering information was basic survival instinct. She activated her tablet one more time, and the display showed a comprehensive analysis of galactic politics over the past 1,000 years. Wars, conflicts, territorial disputes, and diplomatic failures appeared in detailed chronological order. What we learned was very interesting, Elena said. The Galactic Council maintains peace through a balance of power that depends on keeping all members relatively equal. New species are carefully controlled to prevent disruption of established relationships. Rapid development is discouraged. Innovation is managed. Change is restricted. Elena turned to address the entire chamber. This system works well for species that value stability above all else. But humans value adaptation and growth. We do not want to disrupt your system, but we will not be limited by it either. The chamber buzzed with nervous conversations as delegates realized the implications of Elena's words. She was not describing a species that would submit to council authority, but one that would create its own path regardless of galactic politics. Your choice is simple, Elena continued. Accept humanity as we are, or try to force us to become something we are not. If you choose force, you should understand what that means. She brought up one final display, showing human military doctrine and strategic thinking. The information was basic, nothing that revealed actual capabilities, but it demonstrated a level of military sophistication that made several delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. Humans do not fight fair, Elena said matter-of-factly. We do not follow traditional rules of engagement. We do not limit ourselves to acceptable targets or approved weapons. When humans fight, we fight to win completely and permanently. She looked directly at Valorian. Your ultimatum assumes that humanity will choose between submission and destruction. You are missing a third option. Which is? Valorian asked, his light pattern showing deep concern. Elena's expression remained calm, but her voice carried a cold certainty that seemed to lower the temperature in the chamber. Victory. Elena's declaration of human victory sent a wave of shocked silence through the council chamber. Then, as if her words had triggered some hidden mechanism, every display screen in the vast room began showing a countdown timer. The numbers were large, bright, and impossible to ignore. 10 minutes and counting down. Panic erupted among the delegates. Some began shouting orders into communication devices while others activated emergency protocols. A few species simply stared at the countdown in frozen terror, assuming it meant their immediate destruction. "What is this?" Valorian demanded, his crystalline body flashing with rapid, angry light patterns. "Are you threatening to destroy Nexus Station?" Elena looked genuinely surprised by the question. "Destroy Nexus Station?" Speaker Zenthak, that would accomplish nothing useful. The countdown is simply marking the time until humanity reveals its true position in this galaxy. She gestured toward the displays with casual confidence. "You have spent this entire session making decisions based on incomplete information. I thought it would be helpful to provide a more accurate picture of the situation." As if responding to her words, the countdown reached 9, and new information began appearing on screens throughout the chamber. Ship positions, battle formations, and tactical deployments filled every display, but these were not historical records or intelligence estimates. These were real-time tactical displays showing current positions of vessels throughout the galaxy. The Zephyrian delegate was the first to recognize what he was seeing. His scales shifted to deep purple, a color Elena had learned indicated extreme fear. "Those are our home systems," he said in a voice barely above a whisper. "Those contacts, those are ships in our home systems." Elena nodded approvingly. "Very good. Yes, those are ships currently positioned throughout Zephyrian space. Ships that were not there yesterday because yesterday they were cloaked." The countdown reached 8 rows and more information appeared. Fleet positions for dozens of council species, all showing the same pattern. Unknown vessels had appeared seemingly from nowhere in critical strategic positions. "Impossible," the Machine Collective delegate stated with mechanical certainty. "Our sensors would detect any intrusion. Our automated defense systems would respond to unauthorized vessels." "Your sensors detect what they are programmed to look for," Elena replied. "Human stealth technology operates on principles that your systems do not recognize. As for your automated defenses, they respond to threats that match their programmed parameters. Human ships do not match those parameters." The countdown reached 7 and the displays changed again. This time they showed detailed analyses of Council defensive installations, including weaknesses and optimal attack vectors. The information was so precise that several delegates began evacuating the chamber. "How long?" Valorian asked, his voice barely controlled. "How long have human ships been in our space?" Elena consulted her tablet with the casual air of someone checking the weather. "The first infiltration missions began 18 months ago. Initial deployment was limited to observation and intelligence gathering. However, as it became clear that the Council intended to restrict human expansion, we expanded our operations." She looked up at the crystalline speaker with a slight smile. "For the past 6 months, human vessels have been positioned throughout Council space. We are currently capable of striking any target in the galaxy within 4 hours of receiving orders." The countdown reached 6 Cog, and new data appeared showing human technological capabilities, weapon systems, defensive measures, and military doctrine that exceeded anything in Council databases. Several species began frantically contacting their home fleets, only to discover that their communications were being monitored and, when necessary, blocked. "You see," Elena continued conversationally, "humans learned something very important from our history. Wars are won by preparation, not by strength. The side that knows more, plans better, and strikes first usually wins regardless of their relative size or power." The Void Swimmer delegate had gone completely pale. "You planned for war before war was declared. You positioned for attack before negotiations began." This is logical," Elena finished. "Humans entered a galaxy controlled by species that outnumbered us thousands to 1. Did you really think we would not prepare for the possibility that diplomacy might fail?" The countdown reached 5, and the displays changed to show something that made every delegate in the chamber freeze in terror. Real-time feeds from human observation posts showed Council fleets, military installations, and government centers from angles that should have been impossible to achieve. "These are live feeds," Elena announced unnecessarily. "Human observation teams have been studying your defensive capabilities, your response patterns, and your strategic vulnerabilities for over a year. We know how you fight, how you think, and how you will respond to different types of threats." She gestured toward the screen showing Council fleets. "For example, Zephyrian battle doctrine relies on massed formations and overwhelming firepower. However, your ships require 17 minutes to achieve full combat readiness from standby status. Human forces positioned in your systems could disable your primary shipyards and command centers before your fleets could respond. The countdown reached 4 allows, and tactical assessments appeared for each major council species. Attack plans, target priorities, and predicted casualty rates filled the displays in clinical detail. The crystalline dominions prefer energy weapons and energy shields, Elena continued as if giving a lecture. But energy systems create heat signatures that human targeting systems can track through any concealment. Your entire defensive strategy becomes a liability against kinetic bombardment. She turned to address another section of the chamber. The Hive Collective depends on network communication between individual units. Disrupt the network and billions of beings become helpless. Human electronic warfare capabilities could accomplish this in approximately 3 hours. The countdown reached 3 nines, and the displays showed the ultimate revelation: complete human battle plans for a galactic war. Every major strategic target was identified. Every major fleet disposition was countered. Every possible response was anticipated and neutralized. "This is madness," Valorian said, his light patterns flickering with what Elena recognized as panic. "You are describing the destruction of galactic civilization." Elena shook her head. "I am describing the defeat of Council military forces. Destroying civilizations would be wasteful and unnecessary. Humans have no interest in ruling over alien populations or devastating inhabited worlds." The countdown reached 2 salvere, and final tactical data appeared. Human fleet positions, weapon capabilities, and strike timelines that could reduce Council military power to insignificance within days. "You see, Speaker Zenthek, humans learned another important lesson from our history," Elena said. "The goal of war is not to destroy your enemy. The goal is to convince your enemy that continued resistance is futile." She gestured toward the overwhelming display of human military superiority. "We could begin dismantling Council fleets immediately. We could eliminate your military infrastructure before you could mount any effective response. We could reduce the combined might of 800 species to scattered remnants within a matter of weeks." The countdown reached 1, and Elena's voice took on a tone of absolute certainty. "But we would prefer not to. Destruction is wasteful. Dead enemies cannot become allies, and humans would rather have allies than corpses." The countdown reached 0 zar, and every screen in the chamber went dark for exactly 3 seconds. When they reactivated, they showed a single message in every known galactic language: "Humanity chooses cooperation." Elena looked around the chamber at the faces staring at her in shock, terror, and disbelief. When she spoke again, her voice was calm and reasonable, as if she had just finished discussing trade agreements rather than galactic warfare. "So, Speaker Zenithek, shall we reconsider the terms of humanity's relationship with the Galactic Council?" The council chamber remained in stunned silence as Elena's words settled over the assembled delegates. The message, "Humanity chooses cooperation," still glowed on every screen, a stark contrast to the devastating military analysis that had preceded it. Elena stood calmly in the center of the chamber, waiting for someone to respond. Valorian Zenthek was the first to find his voice, though his crystalline body flickered with unstable light patterns. You demonstrate the capability to destroy us all, then speak of cooperation? What kind of madness is this?" Elena tilted her head slightly as if considering the question. "It is not madness, Speaker Zenthek. It is choice. Humans could solve the problem of council restrictions through military force. However, that solution would be wasteful, destructive, and ultimately counterproductive." She gestured toward the screens showing human fleet positions. "Defeating the council would leave humanity alone in a galaxy full of resentful, defeated species. Victory through force creates enemies, not friends. Humans prefer a different approach." Elena activated her tablet and the displays changed to show new information. This time, instead of military capabilities, the screen showed human technological innovations, scientific discoveries, and potential collaborative projects. "Humans offer the Council a choice," Elena announced. "Continue with your attempted restrictions and face a war you cannot win. Or accept humanity as an equal partner and discover what we might accomplish together." The Zephyrian delegate, his scales still showing deep purple fear patterns, spoke with a trembling voice. "How can there be partnership after this? You have threatened the entire galaxy." Elena looked genuinely puzzled by the accusation. "I have threatened no one. I have simply demonstrated that humans are not the helpless primitives you assumed we were." Threats are unnecessary when facts speak clearly enough. She changed the display again, showing detailed proposals for joint projects between humans and council species. Deep space exploration, technological development, resource sharing, and cooperative defense against external threats filled the screens. Consider what humans could offer as allies, Elena said. Our rapid technological development could solve problems that have challenged council species for centuries. Our military expertise could defend against threats that currently force you to pay tribute to pirates and raiders. The Machine Collective delegate processed this information with mechanical precision. Humans propose to replace confrontation with cooperation. However, trust parameters remain undefined. How can cooperation exist after demonstration of overwhelming hostile capability? Elena smiled, and this time the expression seemed genuinely warm. Because humans understand the difference between capability and intention. We have shown you what we could do, not what we intend to do. The choice of which path to follow belongs to the Council. She walked closer to Valorian's platform, her movements calm and unthreatening despite the devastating power she had just revealed. Speaker Zenthek, humans learned something important during our violent history. The strongest civilizations are not those that conquer others, but those that convince others to join them willingly. The displays changed again, showing historical examples of human alliances and partnerships, not conquests or subjugations, but cooperative relationships that benefited all parties involved. Humans do not want to rule the galaxy, Elena continued. We want to explore it, understand it, and help protect it. We want to learn from species with thousands of years of experience, and we want to share what we have learned from our own unique development. A small delegate from the Aquarian Collective, a species Elena knew had remained neutral in council politics, spoke for the first time. What guarantees do we have? What prevents humans from using their demonstrated superiority to impose their will upon us? Elena considered the question carefully before answering. The same thing that prevented us from attacking you without warning, or from simply eliminating council fleets when we had the advantage of surprise. Humans fight when we must, but we prefer to build when we can. She gestured toward the screens showing potential joint projects. Destroying the council would give us 23 human systems in a galaxy full of ruins. Cooperating with the council could give us 870 systems working together toward common goals. The Void Swimmer delegate, his large black eyes fixed on Elena, asked quietly, "And if the council refuses your offer of cooperation? If we cannot accept humans as equals after this demonstration?" Elena's expression remained calm, but her voice carried an undertone of steel. "Then humans will proceed with our own development in our own way, according to our own timeline. The council may choose to accept our presence as neighbors, or you may choose to oppose it, but you will not choose to control it." She activated her tablet one final time, and the display showed a comprehensive analysis of galactic power structures. The information made it clear that humans had already shifted the balance of power simply by existing. The council could either adapt to this new reality or be left behind by it. "The age of council dominance is ending," Elena said matter-of-factly, "not because humans seek to end it, but because the galaxy is changing. New species will continue to emerge. Technology will continue to advance. Threats will continue to evolve. The question is whether these changes happen through cooperation or conflict." Valorian's light patterns had stabilized into what Elena recognized as deep contemplation. "You offer partnership while holding a weapon to our throats. How is this different from conquest?" Elena shook her head. "Speaker Zenthek, you offered restrictions while holding the threat of galactic isolation and military action. The difference is that humans are honest about our capabilities, while the council preferred to pretend that force was not involved in your ultimatum." She gestured around the chamber. "Every species here understands power. Every government maintains military forces. Every civilization has defended itself against threats. Humans are not unique in being capable of war. We are unique in being honest about it." The chamber buzzed with quiet conversations as delegates consulted with each other and their home governments. Elena could see the debate playing out across hundreds of alien faces. Fear warred with pragmatism, pride wrestled with necessity, and old assumptions struggled against new realities. Finally, Valorian called for silence. "The council requires time to consider humanity's proposal. This session is suspended pending further deliberation." Elena nodded respectfully. "Of course, Speaker Zenthek. Humans understand that important decisions require careful thought. However, I should mention that our current fleet deployments are temporary. Human vessels will begin returning to normal operations in 72 hours, whether or not the Council has reached a decision. The implications were clear. This demonstration of human capability was a limited-time offer. After 3 days, the Council would have to rely on faith rather than evidence when considering humanity's power. As delegates began filing out of the chamber, many paused to stare at Elena with mixtures of fear, respect, and curiosity. She remained standing in the center of the room, reviewing information on her tablet as if nothing unusual had occurred. The Aquarian delegate approached her cautiously. "Ambassador Vasquez, may I ask you something?" Elena looked up with interest. "Of course, you could have simply attacked without warning. You could have achieved tactical surprise and eliminated Council resistance before we knew humans existed. Why reveal your capabilities? Why offer cooperation when you could simply take what you want?" Elena smiled, and for the first time since entering the chamber, the expression seemed to reach her eyes. "Because humans learned the most important lesson of all from our violent history. The greatest victories are achieved not by defeating your enemies but by convincing them to become your friends." She looked around the chamber one final time before heading toward the exit. "Besides," she added quietly, "humans have discovered that friends make much better neighbors than corpses." 3 days later, the Galactic Council voted unanimously to recognize humanity as a senior member species with full territorial and technological autonomy. Elena's response became legendary throughout the galaxy. "Excellent. When do we begin?"